Hey y'all, Jeff Nowak here, NOLA.com digital sports producer, bringing you today's Saints live chat. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Hancock Whitney, for helping us bring these to y'all. And I have with me today our two Saints beat writers, Amy Just and Luke Johnson. How y'all doing?
Jeff, I'm great. Thank you for having me.
I need to start addressing you individually so you know which one is supposed to talk when I say that. But hey, live and learn. But okay, today is our mailbag edition of these live chats. We're going to hit a few questions. So if you have one, make sure you throw it in the comments feed, wherever you're watching, YouTube, Facebook, your kitchen, I don't know. But first, we're going to hit obviously an important topic, any game week, which is what's the latest in the Saints injuries? What are we looking at? I'll go to Amy. You first. What did you see today from the injury report, from media availabilities, all that stuff?
Yeah, so the injury report for the Saints was the same today as it was yesterday. 3 players didn't practice, 3 were limited. The 3 who didn't practice were Latavius Murray with a quad, Taysom Hill with a knee, and Patrick Robinson with a hamstring. The 3 who were limited, Trey Hendrickson, again with that stinger, his neck, Teron with an elbow injury, and Jared Cook with a back injury. So, yeah, it's a little bit of cause for concern with Murray, Taysom, and Patrick Robinson. But if Trey, Teron, and Jared remain limited, you would think that they would either be upgraded tomorrow or just having a chance to play in overall. But Murray and Taysom, I'm a little worried about. But we'll know more tomorrow.
Yeah, same with me. I think what has been kind of circulating about Latavius Murray is that he's kind of day to day, and that's something they're going to have to keep a close eye on. So it'll be kind of interesting to see tomorrow whether they decide to rule him out or call him questionable. I think he is going to have some sort of injury designation. The Taysom Hill one I think is pretty surprising to me because they checked him out. I think it might have even been the first quarter in that game. He spent a pretty long time on the sidelines getting checked out with the medical staff, and then checked right back in and ran like a quarterback design run and played kind of his usual role for the remainder of that game. So I was thinking that yesterday they might have been just kind of playing it cautious and giving him a day of rest and then working back in today limited. And to see him miss his second day of practice is a little surprising. So tomorrow ought to be an interesting day.
Yeah, and I think this time of year is always kind of weird because you have to kind of balance are they out because they just need an extra day, or are they actually, at risk of missing the game? Of all these guys, do you think there's a chance that even if they get limited practice tomorrow, a lot of these guys will be active?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think all 3 guys who are limited, I would imagine, are probably going to play on Sunday. And the thing that I'm really interested by is typically the Saints are a team that if you don't practice, you don't play. And obviously things are a little bit different with some players than they are with others. But the fact that Alvin Kamara went an entire week without practicing and still went out there and played really well. I'm curious if they'd be more open to having guys after that happened just rest an entire week and still be have an active role in the game plan for Sunday. But obviously tomorrow is going to be the kind of the big test on that when they release the designations.
Yeah, and obviously P-Rob isn't like a full-time starter, but him popping back up on the injury report, not practicing with his hamstring injury, is concerning for me that he just can't get over this, right? He's been dealing with hamstring injuries pretty much all season long. Last week was his first week back off the injured reserve, and he's not practicing. So you hope he's all right there, but it's raise the eyebrow a little bit.
So in the world where Latavius Murray and Taysom Hill don't play, what do you think the options would be there? Obviously, you have Ty Montgomery, you still have Dwayne Washington there. What would you expect to see if you were without Latavius Murray in that matchup?
I mean, I don't. That's a really tough one to answer. I think in normal weeks, I think they would probably bring Ty Montgomery into the fold a little bit more, or maybe Dwayne Washington. I think he's actually been pretty good when he's given opportunities. But Tampa's got a really, really good run front. I mean, it's the second straight year they've led the NFL in rush defense. Second straight year they led the NFL in rushing yards per play allowed. Only like 3.6 yards per play against Tampa's run defense this year. And I think the Saints got it going really well against them the last time out. But that power and explosion complement they have between Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara is a really good weapon against this kind of front. And I think without both Taysom Hill and Latavius Murray in there, you start to wonder if maybe they have to they'd be forced to lean on the passing game a little bit more in this game.
What Luke said. Yep.
That makes
I'm
sense.
gonna have to start letting you take the first crack at these questions. So you don't have to figure out a different way to tackle them.
Say the same thing.
I mean, it's fine. I'm not going to try to BS my way through an answer and make something up when what I have to say is just what you said. So,
I see Chris Roth saying everybody throws on Tampa, and that's why the numbers are what they are versus the run. I'll very strongly disagree with that. They've got a very, very good, very, very good defensive line, and they back that up with two of the better sideline-to-sideline linebackers in Levante David and Devin White. They're very tough to run against. And I think the Saints found that out in week one. They really couldn't run the ball against them at all. And they tried to stretch the field a little bit, go horizontal with Alvin Kamara. It just didn't work. And I think they had to change things up in the second game. And it's not because teams are just throwing the ball 300 yards a game against Tampa. I think they really do have a very tough run front to work against.
Speaking of Tampa, so we have one person, or Brandy wants to know what the injury report is for Tampa Bay. I'm looking at it right now. They had 4 DMPs today. You had Andrew Adams, which is not an injury. Jason Pierre-Paul, who hasn't practiced the last 2 days with a knee injury. That's significant. Alex Kappa out the last 2 days with an ankle injury, another significant one. And then Jeremiah Ledbetter, defensive lineman, out for the last 2 days with a calf injury. So, Tampa's dealing with some stuff too. They'll get Devin White back this week. He didn't play against the Washington football team because for the same reason Alvin Kamara wouldn't have played if the game was on Saturday. He was not cleared. But Jason Pierre-Paul had a really, really good game. Even in that 38-3 loss, he was all over the field. So that's a guy to watch, I think.
Yeah, and then another thing to note. So Ronald Jones didn't play last week. Their star running back. He was upgraded to limited today after missing practice yesterday.
Yeah.
So the Leonard Fournette show might not be.
I mean, they may do a lot of different things, considering what they did in the last 2 games didn't work. So.
Okay, here's one, Amy. I think you could dive in on this. Did the Saints sign a backup kicker? The answer is yes, but it's a bit more complicated than that. Can you help us out there?
Yeah, so it's not for the reasons why you think. So it's Blair Walsh, veteran kicker. So he's not technically on the practice squad right now, but he's in the testing protocols. So if something were to happen to Will, whether he gets injured or he gets COVID or God forbid, Will is still a good kicker. That's a discussion for another day, but he has had his struggles lately. But the reason why they signed Blair Walsh and then cut him, but he's still in the testing protocol is because just in case something happens with COVID. My main article today kind of explains that and how, if you don't have your wide receivers, you've got backups. If you don't have your quarterback, you've got backups. It's not the same level of talent, obviously, but you still have backups. There's no backup for the punter, kicker, or long snapper. You've got guys who could do it, but not the way that you would want them to. So that is true for the kicker, Blair Walsh, and then a long snapper, John Denny. The Saints do have a punter in the building in addition to Thomas Morstead. You may have forgotten about him. It's a rookie, Blake Gillikin. He made the initial 53-man roster way back in September, so 5 years ago. And he's been on the injured reserve ever since. So they've got backups that they can bring into the building if they're not already in the building on short-term notice if something happens.
Yeah, I think everybody saw what happened in Denver, and they want to avoid that travesty.
Yeah.
I think we saw it last week with the Washington football team benefited from it. I mean, they signed Taylor Heineke just to be their COVID quarterback in case the infection wiped out their most important position. And then the guy ended up playing a pretty significant role and playing pretty well against Tampa last week. I just think that this season is so unpredictable that you can't just go into a game assuming that like this group of players that are around each other all the time are going to be available to you. You have to have the contingency plans in place. Otherwise, you're just like, you do not want to go into a game that could send you to the NFC Championship game and be like, okay, we need Alvin Kamara to try to kick a 27-yard field goal to send us to that game. Like, you just don't want that to happen. You have to be prepared.
Yeah, and I think the long snapper is one of those positions that you might not even know the long snapper's name until he's not there, and all of a sudden, the ball gets snapped over the kicker's head 3 times or the punter's head 3 times, and you're not forgetting that name for a while. I have all of our favorite sports takes right here. Are you ready for it? It's hard to beat a team 3 times a year. I don't mean to troll David here. We just hear this a lot. And Sean Payton talked about this today, I think. Right?
He called it a myth. So
yeah,
there you go.
What does the math say, Amy? I know you're working on a story about this.
Yeah. So there have been like around 70 teams since the merger in 1970 that have played a division team in the playoffs, regardless of their regular season record against each other. There are only like 14 of those. There's only like 24, 25 or so that were sweeps, and it's about 2/3 where they go on to win the third, and the other third of those matchups had the team going 0-2 in the regular season winning. So it's not impossible, but for me, I think of it as, if you're good enough to have beaten a team 2 times already, you should still be good enough to beat them the 3rd time. That's how I think about it, though.
I know the Giants did it a couple times to the Cowboys. They lost them twice in the regular season and beat them in the playoffs. And that's honestly,
teams won the Super Bowl. Actually,
yeah,
that is
right.
An outlier that I will be talking about in my article, and it gets posted Saturday. So,
yeah. That was the Tom Brady Super Bowl, or they were both Tom Brady Super Bowls. That was the 16-0 Patriots year, I think.
I believe so. I'd have to look back at it. I've looked at a lot of data the past couple of days, so forgive me if my numbers are a little off.
I remember this because I grew up a Giants fan. So that was the year they beat the Patriots, who were 16-0, and then the next time they won the Super Bowl, they went to Green Bay and beat the Packers, who went 15-1 in the regular season. Yeah. And
that year, the 2007 year was also they also beat the Packers in Green Bay in Brett Favre's last game in Green Bay, and I guess that was the NFC Championship game.
Yep, I remember that game because Tom Coughlin's face was literally freezing off. It became like redder and redder every time they panned to him. I was legitimately worried for him on the sidelines, but Saints don't have to worry about that level of cold until maybe next week, based on what happens on Sunday, which, we talked about it a little bit. So what would you say like your key matchups are if you're kind of looking at this? I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit. We can start with Amy so that Luke doesn't steal her answer. But, if you were picking a key matchup to watch in this game, and even it can be positional, it can be players, what would that be?
It's kind of cliche, but I look at the lines. How well does the Saints offensive line hold up against such a talented run defense? And then on the flip side, last time out, Trey Hendrickson sacked Tom Brady 3 times in a row. Now, one of those was, wiped away by a penalty, but getting constant pressure on Tom Brady, that's what you want. You don't want to give him time to throw because he's dangerous, and you've seen this for years. That if you give that man any time whatsoever, he's going to torch you. So the line play.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that. I mean, there's a lot of different matchups here that are really important, but I think that's the most important one. You go back and look at the numbers The most Tom Brady's been sacked in a game this year is 3 times, right? That's happened 5 times this year. So in the 5 games where he's been sacked 3 times, he's thrown 7 touchdowns against 5 interceptions, and Tampa's gone 2-3. And then if you look at the 12 games where he's been sacked 2 or fewer times, he's thrown 35 touchdowns and he's thrown 7 interceptions, and Tampa's gone 10-2. It's critically important if you're going to go up against this team to pressure Tom Brady, and it's especially important if you can do it with your front 4 and not send extra guys in the blitz and leave holes in your coverage behind it, because he's going to pick that up. He's going to pick up where the blitz is coming from, and he's going to try to attack where the blitz is coming from, because he's really, really good at that. But if you can get the 4-man pressure in his face, and then have the 7 guys behind him all covering the receivers in the backfield or in the defensive secondary, then it really dramatically increases your chance of winning the game.
That makes sense. There's one stat that I'll throw out here that kind of ties into, why I'm picking mine, which is the safeties versus Tom Brady. And the reason I say that is because Tom Brady has led the NFL this year in deep passing attempts at 43 years old. He targeted receivers 20 plus yards downfield 91 times. The next closest was Matt Ryan at 78, which is pretty remarkable when you think about it. People talk about Drew Brees being old and he can't throw it as far anymore. He only threw deep 26 times, which at the way the season started is actually kind of remarkable. He got to that number even though he missed 4 games. But he's going to push you deep. He's got the guys to do it, and it's going to be a key matchup. It's easy to forget early in the season, the Saints got burned over and over again on deep balls. It seemed like every week, the first 5 weeks of the season, there was somebody, actually first 6, because it happened against the Panthers too. Someone was getting behind them for a deep bomb. The defense would hold up, and all of a sudden, I can't remember who it was. Mike Williams would get behind him on a deep ball. DJ Moore for the Panthers got behind him on a deep ball, and they've tightened up in the second half of the season. I think that's been a big part of why the Saints defense has really kind of held people in check. But they need to keep doing that this week, and they're going to have a challenge. The Bucs weren't able to do that, as Amy said, last time they played, because Tom Brady's house was filled with Saints linemen the entire game, and he wasn't able to even get the ball downfield. So I think if I'm looking at a matchup, I think that's one that's going to be a big one this game.
I think they go hand in hand.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I think they go hand in hand. I do.
Right. If you don't give him time, you can't get it deep.
Yep.
But yeah, he's slinging it this year.
Yeah, and he's been especially good his last 5 games. During that 5-game winning streak, he's been kind of insane. 14 touchdowns, I think 2 interceptions, averaging almost 350 yards a game. He's been playing at a really high level. They're going to need that pass rush to be there. And if that pass rush doesn't get home, they're going to need that secondary to kind of ball out, because Tampa's got no joke outstanding pass catching options. I mean, it's crazy. Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, and Chris Godwin have all gone off for 130 plus in the last 3 weeks at some point. So they're going to need those guys to play up if the pass rush isn't getting home.
All right. So one last thing before we go. CJGJ, the king of trash talk, has been a topic this week. Who do you think is going to get kicked out this week when they punch him in the face?
I don't know if anybody will get kicked out, but if somebody does, I don't know. I just feel like Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore, they've had it coming for a while. Those two get after it like nobody else, and it's fun to watch. But I don't know. That's my underrated pick, though. CJ versus AB would be interesting to watch too, in terms of fighting. But I don't know.
Amy's out here talking about cage match stuff.
Oh, okay.
Hold barred. Do the kickboxing thing where they dip their gloves and nails and everything and just get ready to fight.
It would be fun to watch. I don't think it happens, but it would be entertaining.
No, I do think Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans legit can't stand each other.
Oh.
And I'm pretty sure the last time they played, they almost got into it.
I'm pretty sure Mike Evans did punch Marshawn Lattimore in the opener, and I don't think the refs saw it.
It might have been the opener, or it was the opener. I can't remember, but they did have some sort of physical altercation, and they have a history of it. And Marshawn Lattimore takes a lot of joy in seeing a very small stat line from Mike Evans, and he makes sure to let everybody know about it afterwards. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing that.
It's one of my favorite like person-to-person rivalries in sports. Like it's just so fun.
But is it? Can you even call it a rivalry? It's more like it's kind of like Drew Holiday and Damian Lillard. Like, is it a rivalry if one of them just puts the other one in jail every time they play?
I mean, I went to Kansas, as the flag behind me denotes, and they haven't beat K-State in a really long time. We still consider it a rivalry, I guess. So maybe, depending on your perspective.
That's fair. But one thing we can say for sure, when you play CJ Gardner-Johnson, it's CJ GJ versus the player and then CJ versus your brain, because he just finds a way to get in your head. It's just like nails on a chalkboard, I think, the entire game. And eventually, I don't even blame Anthony Miller. I think that was always going to happen, whether Matt Nagy shows them CJ film as they prepare for the game or not. But okay, y'all want to add anything else, or are we good to get out of here?
I think just the one point I would make is Tampa's been, Sean Payton referenced it this week, they've been like a really, really good second half team this year. They're leading the NFL in scoring margin in the second half, and especially in the fourth quarter. I think they're like plus 74 in the fourth quarter this year. So I think it's kind of critical the Saints get out to a quick start in this game, and I don't think you want it to be particularly close at halftime. It's obviously these are all week to week things, but I don't think you want to be in a position where you're trying to get out of a deficit or playing in a tight game in the second half here.
Just bouncing off of that, we're not going to see a game like last time. That's just not going to happen. Those types of games don't happen very often at all, let alone against the same team. So I think it's going to be close in the fourth quarter. I really do. I don't think it's going to be a complete blowout like a couple months ago. I really don't.
So 38-6.
No.
All right. Well, we can wrap it up there. Again, my name is Jeff Nowak, NOLA.com's digital sports producer. I'm here with Amy Just and Luke Johnson. You can follow them on Twitter at Amy_Just and at by Luke Johnson. Make sure to check out NOLA.com/sports/Saints for all the latest coverage, latest headlines. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. I'd like to thank our sponsor again, Hancock Whitney Bank, for helping us bring all these live chats. And peace, y'all. Thanks for watching.
Subscribe.
All right.